Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark Live. My name is Jeff, also known as the Revit Kid. If you've been here before and you've watched this show, thank you for returning. If this is your first time tuning in, this is a now weekly, this is actually episode 18, believe it or not, weekly live stream that I do on usually Thursday nights around this time, 7:30 Eastern, and basically talking about all things Revit and BIM related. Sometimes it's just me, sometimes we have guests. But either way, it's a fun, informal live session. So feel free, if it's your first time, the chat, I do try my best to keep up with the chat, answer questions along the way. I want this to be as interactive as possible without being on like Zoom and seeing hundreds of faces on here. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little Zoom fatigued this week. I did two presentations, and each of those had like 3 or 4 virtual dry runs, and they were all virtual presentations. So I'm feeling it, but I'm pretty excited about this topic. So I'm excited to talk about it tonight. This is something Power BI and Revit and visualizing data is something that people have been asking for since I started running the show, and I've heard about it in the past, and I've gotten emails and stuff in the past, and so it's something that I've been trying to figure out how I wanted to break into. We had a session 2 weeks ago where Conrad, if you guys missed that, check it out from 2 weeks ago. By the way, all the episodes can be found either on my YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe. Let me hit the subscribe overlay. Boom. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications, and all of the live streams are there afterwards. There's a playlist called BIM After Dark Live, but you can also go to live.bimafterdark.com and see all of the episodes so far. What I was saying is 2 weeks ago, Conrad, who is now from BIM Beats, came on, and he really started talking about visualizing data and some of the data analysis and stuff. And so I wasn't quite ready to follow up with that. So now that I've produced some content here, and I'm ready to introduce you guys to what Power BI is and the connection with Revit and what you can do with visualizing your data. So super excited about it. Another thing I wanted to mention too is if you're interested in any of the content that I do have a bunch of really cool free resources that I think you should check out. One of them is actually a full twin motion course, but also a bunch of ebooks and stuff. So check that out at free.bimafterdark.com, and I'll chat it down here, free.bimafterdark.com. So definitely check out all of that stuff. That's some pretty cool content there. All right. And if there's a little bit of delay in between when you're chatting and when I'm speaking, so bear with me a little bit. I do like to try and read. The chats sometimes go fast. I do like to try and read a little bit, so if I get silent for a second, I'll let you know. But if I'm looking over here, that means I'm reading your chats. Awesome. So how long was I in Montreal? Did you ever go back? Sebastian asked me about Montreal. I'm not sure why he said that. Did I mention it before? Maybe. I don't know. Well, yes, I was in Montreal once, and it was probably like 2013 or something like that. It was actually for a class trip for my graduate program, and it was a great city. We had a really good time, and I haven't really been back since. I've been to Toronto once since then, and Vancouver once since then, but I haven't been back to Montreal. I loved it, so one day I'll get back there, but I don't think they'll let me in right now, unfortunately. Alrighty, here we go. And then Carlos asks, is this a brand new bad version for about data? Currently, no, I don't have any courses on BIM After Dark related to this, but if there's enough need and want for this side of what we do, then I'm more willing to make it. So what I was going to start out with saying is that I sort of got introduced to Power BI, I want to say maybe 2 years now, for various different things, but the first reason was there's an integration with Assemble. And so if you guys don't know what Assemble Systems is, it's a product by Autodesk, but it was designed for model-based quantity takeoff, and it had an integration into Power BI. And so we use now Assemble for quantity takeoff as well as production tracking and a bunch of really different things, really cool things. If you just search on the revitkid.com on my blog for Assemble Systems, I think I even have a presentation, an hour-long presentation about what it is. But super valuable tool. But one of the really cool things is that it had a direct connection to Power BI. So we would upload Revit models into Assemble, do all of our stuff in there, whether it's quantity takeoff or production tracking, and then we can have a live dynamic link where we just refresh it with Power BI. What I'm going to show you today is skipping the Assemble piece of it and just showing you how you can start using Power BI right now and connecting to your models and pulling out data and visualizing things. The one thing I want to mention is I'm going to show a bunch of different sort of ways that you could use it, but what I really want you to take away from tonight is how this connection gets made, the concepts behind it, a little comfort with Power BI as a tool, Microsoft Power BI, which I'll talk about in a second. And then from there, I'm hoping that you take this knowledge and you'll immediately have 7 other ideas of how you would use it. So I'm using it for very specific things, but the goal tonight is that you're comfortable starting to use it for whatever the heck it is that you think you'll find value from it. Somebody just asked for the link for the Assemble presentation, so since we're live, why not? I'll quickly look it up because I'll probably find it quicker than you guys. Something that's really funny, I've been, if you haven't been following me for a long time, I've been blogging since 2009, so 11 years now on therevitKid.com, and there are over, I think it's almost 1,300 posts now out of those 11 years, and I find myself searching the blog probably more than you do to find something that I did in like 2008 or 2016 or whatever, and so it's kind of interesting how that pans out. But let me just quickly look for Assemble for you guys. I'll post that link in there. Here we go. So this was actually a webinar I did with Assemble Systems, and so I'll post the link right here. And then I did do, if you guys happen to make it out to Built North America last year in Seattle. It was last year now. It feels like such a long time ago. And I did an entire class there as well on Assemble Systems, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's get into this thing. I'll just read in real quick some of the things. Awesome. So we got some. Oh, so some people have tried Revit to Excel to Power BI. Sweet. All right. So yeah, I'm going to talk about a couple of different ways that you connect it and just sort of show some recent things that I did. And what I wanted to do was kind of pull away the other software. So like for example, one of the main reasons that I'm using this, like I said before, is with Assemble and that connection, which means you're pumping Revit into Assemble, and then you're using the connection to Assemble to do all of the data visualization. I know that DB link is out there, and so full disclosure, if you guys are, anyone out there is comfortable with SQL and Microsoft database and Access and stuff and that whole thing, shoot me an email, because I struggled for a few days to try and get that work to basically connect the whole database, and it was tough. And I apologize if you hear my son crying. He hates brushing his teeth. He's almost 2 years old now, and we are struggling with brushing your teeth. Anyways, so I was messing around with that, and I do know that I think Nathan Miller of Proven Ground, I believe, I think he has an app that just came out called Tracer. Yeah, Proving Ground. So if you guys are interested in that, check it out. And I do know that he's utilizing some of the connections that you can make there on the back end, and that's through an add-in. But what I want to show you is today, without any add-ins at all, how you can start connecting and visualizing your model data. As simple as just using schedules that are already in Revit to pulling out information and then being able to combine them in Power BI. Okay, as well as sort of showing you what Power BI is, because some of you out there may not know what it is. And actually, maybe in the comments, let me know real quick if you've ever heard, if you feel like you know what Power BI is and you're comfortable with it, say yes. And if you don't say anything, because I'm curious to see out of 100 and some odd people that are on here right now, how many yeses we get. Because I know for a while I had no idea what it was. And it's perfectly comfortable doing that. Okay. So Neil just said he's spent years doing that connection. So if you've done that, yeah, shoot me an email, Neil, for sure. And it looks like, who is that? Oh, it's Alberto. Alberto said that he's still struggling with, oh no, he's 5 years old and your son is still struggling brushing his teeth. You tell me I'm dealing with this for 3 years? Oh boy. Awesome. So we got a few yeses in there, which is great. I'm assuming that there's a majority of you out there who don't, which is great as well. And that's the whole point here is really to show you the connection, but also introduce you to Power BI. So I don't want to go too fast. And if you have questions, feel free to hit the chat and let me know as I'm going through it. Because this can be some crazy stuff, the concepts, but at the end of the day, it's actually extremely simple, and I'm hoping that I can explain that to you. So we got a bunch of yeses, awesome, but that's still only about 10 or 11 yeses out of 115 people. So That's all good. So let us go to my little head in the corner and little Revit action. So before I jump into Revit and sort of talk about how you can pull data out and the most efficient ways to pull data out and pull it into Power BI, I'm going to pull open Power BI as well to show you some of the dashboards that I'm going to be displaying today. And so this is just a quick mock-up one. This is the one that we're going to be using as our example to connecting directly to Revit. And so what you can see here is we have these are the rooms in the project, and you can tell we have the level, the number, the name of them, and the area. Then we have the total area here, but we also have things like you can see the total area by name or even by percentage. So what percentage of the area, etc. And obviously you can see this one's unique because the first floor has a 67% of the total square footage of the building, and the basement only has 33%, and that's because there's a whole the addition was actually a slab on grade, and so it makes sense. We added 30% to the building, but just something right there. The one that I'm really excited about, which I'm going to show you, is something I did recently. And so if you remember last week, I introduced a project that I'm working on myself, which is my own house, and I started playing with the idea of what if I did a cost estimate like we do right now in Assemble, which is what we're doing model based, and I built in unit pricing to my model, and then how can I pull that out and effectively use Power BI to analyze the cost? And so I'm going to run through that a little bit. It's really cool, and I'll show you there's some unique features to how I had to approach that. This one here is just something that you guys, if you're ever involved in the coordination process, 3D coordination process, this one's a nice one where we actually just used, this is an Excel sheet tied to a couple of pieces of information to track the progress of different pieces of coordination. So you can see these are percentage complete by floor of the coordination, model percentage complete. Did they upload their model? Is it submitted, or did they shop drawing submitted? And so here we're kind of looking at the subcontractors and saying, hey, we're tracking you, and you've got 10 submittals that are delinquent and stuff like that. And so that's a cool one. And then production tracking is another one. And so this is actually a project that, as you can see, we're tracking curtain wall here, and this is where Assemble comes into play, where we're actually putting the models up in the cloud. We're assigning statuses to them using parameters, so like installed date, etc. And then we're bringing them into Power BI and we're connecting them, and that's where we're looking at things like completion percentage, current completion versus scheduled completion versus pace, how many pieces per day and stuff. I'm not going to get into the Assemble side of it today. I just wanted to show you some examples. What I really want to do is just show you how you can just get started, right? These are just some examples, and my goal is I'm hoping that at the end of today, you've got a million ways that you can think of using this tool, Power BI, and visualizing your data for your daily use, whether it's design, whether it's analyzing, whether it's, if you're a BIM manager, maybe it's kind of like a BIM Beats idea where you're looking at the health of a model, how many errors there are, how many refreshes, whatever, right? There's just all kinds of cool stuff you can do with it. All right, and so before I jump into Revit and start, I'm just going to check the chat real quick. There's a problem with Access in 64-bit. Yeah, I like I said, I tried. So before I started doing the example I'll show you with the cost estimate, I attempted setting up a local Access server or a local SQL server, and then having the Revit database export to that and then pull it in, and I was just failing miserably. I'm also doing it on a work machine that I don't even know if there's back-end stuff that may be stopping it from happening, but whatever. The goal, what I was planning on doing there was pulling out the entire model database, which at the end of the day probably would have been a lot harder to filter through in Power BI than the process I'm going to show you now. Neil asked who is building these dashboards. Well, me and my team. So the ones that you saw there so the construction cost one and the room one, those are ones that I've created myself. The production tracking and the coordination tracking, those are all ones that myself or my VDC staff and team throughout the region create. So we all of our staff on the virtual design and construction front of Turner are trained in Power BI. I say trained, but really it was just myself and Dan, who's actually here chatting away down there. Kind of taught ourselves and then taught them. So we were never really formally chat, but that's how it works, right? Why not? Okay. So I'll keep an eye on the chat, but I'm going to jump in a little bit. So I'm using houses as an example just because they're smaller, they're a lot easier to see on the screen, and there's a lot less data coming out of them. And so the very first thing I want to show you how to do is to take a schedule that you created in Revit and be able to analyze it in Power BI. It's really simple, really quick, but it's extremely powerful. Okay, so what I have here is a house. As I mentioned before, it's actually a renovation addition. So on the left hand side basically is the existing house. On the right hand side is the addition. As you can see, the addition was bigger than the existing house, and so that's why you see that 60-30% sort of variation there. But what I want to do is I want to look at first, because I think it's an easy concept to follow, is I want to look at rooms. And so if I look at the first floor plan here and I zoom in, you can see I've got a bunch of rooms, kitchen, foyer. My existing rooms have an X on them, etc. But let's say I want to take my room schedule and I want to pump it into Power BI for something. I don't know what, but we're going to use it for something. Okay. So the first thing you're going to need, and this is not the case for every example I'm showing, but the first thing you're going to need right now is you're going to need a schedule. Okay. So if you don't know how to make a schedule, I'll show you right now. You're going to go up to View. You're going to go to Schedules, and you're going to say Schedules and Quantities. And then you're going to pick your category or multi-category, which I'll talk about in a little while. But I'm going to click Rooms. And you can see Room Schedule 2 because I already have one created, but that's okay. So I'm going to say Rooms, and then I'm going to give them some information. So what parameters do I want to be in my schedule? So the first parameter I'm going to want is going to be level. You know, what level these rooms on, first floor, basement, second floor, etc. I'm probably going to want to do number and perhaps name. And where's name? Let's see, name. And then perimeter, because why not? Let's add some perimeter. And then last but not least, let's do area. Okay, and then I'm going to click OK. And just like that, you know, we have a schedule, which now we can zoom into. Oh my God. Man, it's one of those things that you're zooming into a schedule, you're like, that's a new feature, but when you're teaching Revit, man, it's great to have. Or when you're on a 4K monitor. Okay, so as you can see here, now we have levels, numbers, name, perimeter, and area, and it's called Room Schedule 2. So now right now, if you wanted to export this and let's say pull it into Excel, what would you do? You would go to File, right? Let's go to File. Oops. File, Export. And then we'd roll all the way down and we'd say Reports and then Schedule. Don't ask me why it's 17 clicks deep. I know Autodesk likes to hide some stuff, but man, I don't know why Schedule Exports has to be so freaking deep. So then you click Schedule and you go about your merry way. But what I want to do first is I want to just explain some things that are going to make our lives easier on the Power BI side to this schedule that you may not want to see, or you may want to see them in Revit, but you don't want to see them in Power BI. So what I suggest doing is if you do use this process and you want to keep this this schedule up to date and your visual up to date, but you also want to use this schedule on like a set of drawings or something, I suggest you make two schedules, because one of them, the Power BI export one, you're going to format for Power BI. The other one you're going to format for documents. But the reality is it's in Revit, so they're always going to be up to date, right? So there's a couple things that we need to do. The first thing we need to do is we need to get rid of our SF for the area, because on the Power BI side, we want it to be able to add and subtract the square footage. And if there's an SF there, right, anyone who's tried to do this in Excel, you probably know, you know, it's not going to add. It's going to see it as text. You can't make it a number parameter. And so we could technically do that after the fact, but I can tell you right now, it's always easier to try and get the format of your data correct during the export than it is in the Power BI side. And so I'll show you what I mean when we get in there, because you can manipulate data when it comes in, but it's way easier if you have it already set the way you want. Okay, and Bogdan just said he hates Imperial units. I do too, but unfortunately we're forced to use them. Look at all those 256 of an inch, huh? Nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get rid of the SF. So if you don't know how to do that, I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to go to Fields, and then I'm going to flip over to Formatting. I don't know why. So this is just, for some reason I'm on a soapbox tonight. For some reason, I understand that all the tabs, like if you see here the edit, all these tabs or all these edits here are the same tabs as this, and it makes sense that like if you want to jump right into that tab, you click it. But for whatever reason, and I've been using Revit obviously for a long time, I always go into Fields first and then flip over to the tab. I don't know why. Maybe it's just not intuitive, the fact that this is the same as that. But if you guys also do that, then let me know, because drives me nuts, but I can't condition myself any other way. Okay, so first I'm going to go to area, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to where it says conditional format. I'm sorry, not conditional. I'm going to go down to field format. So field format is going to let us override how Revit explains an area. So your project units are usually what say it. So maybe it's a square foot, maybe it's cubic foot, maybe it's cubic yard, whatever, right? And so those are there. Those are project globally set. But you can actually override them in any view and schedule. So I'm going to uncheck use project settings, and then when it says unit symbol, I'm going to say none. Okay. The other thing too is square feet is always rounded. I don't know if you noticed that, but by default, I should say. So if I want to say 2 decimal places or 3 decimal places, I can also add some accuracy, I guess, to it. And then I'm going to click OK. And then the other thing I want to do is my perimeter. So Power BI, if you really wanted to, you can try and get it to recognize lengths like that. But I would suggest making your life easier is to use decimal feet or some version of that for your perimeter. So I'm going to go to perimeter now. I'm going to go to field format. I'm going to uncheck project settings. And I'm actually going to say decimal feet. And I'm going to round it to 2 places. Maybe I'm not going to have a unit symbol. I'm going to click OK. And there we go. So now we have perimeters and areas. We know they're feet. And again, thanks whoever said Imperial sucks. I know it. 153.3 is super awkward to figure out in feet. But when we're looking at the analysis of it, it's perfectly fine. So what we did there is we actually got rid of some junk that just won't read well in Excel or Power BI for that fact. Okay, so that's funny. It looks like a few people do exactly what I do. Isn't that bizarre? It's just like it's a user experience sort of thing that I just can't get over. They actually don't need these. They should just have like something edit and then let us jump into it. Why give us all this options? I mean, come on. Okay. So now this is pretty much good for Power BI. The only thing we need to pay attention to is during the export, there's 2 settings we need to pay attention to, okay? So let's do that. The other thing too, actually, I should mention is, let me just go to, so under appearance, the blank row before data is something that you could leave it on because that's really easy to remove in Power BI. But I actually like it turned off. The less crap you have to do in Power BI, the better. Okay, so the more formatted your data is for the program, the easier life's always going to be. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the blank row. So now we got ourselves a really, really simple sheet. Okay, so now all we have to do is we have to go to File. File's really slow today. Export, Reports, Schedule. Okay, so now I'm going to throw this in a folder here. I'm going to call it Room Schedule 2 because I already have a room schedule there. And remember, it's a .txt, it's a delineated file. I'm going to click Save. But before I click OK here, there's a couple things I want to do. Okay, I want to get rid of Export Title. And I want to make sure Export Column Heads is there. And that should be it. So the reason I'm doing that is if you don't get rid of that, your first row of your data is going to be Room Schedule 2, that big Room Schedule 2, and it just messes everything up in Power BI. Because what you want is you want Power BI to recognize level, number, name, perimeter, and area as your column headers. And the second you put a piece of data in front of that, they are no longer your column headers. And you'll see visually what all of this means in a second. So you want to turn off Export Title. Apologize. Now I'm going to click OK. All right, and there it is. It's gone. So now if I go to that file, in case if you guys have never done this before, I guess it's probably a good lesson to open it so you can see. So this is actually a text file that is a tab delineated. So when you open it, it's going to look like garbage, right? So I mean, I guess this one's wrapped okay, but sometimes it looks crazy. But you can see it's this format that tells the computer what columns and rows are. There's not much you can do with it there. It's a text file. So normally, if you've gone through this process, you probably would open Excel, dump it into Excel, and do something with it. Well, luckily for us, Power BI reads these files without having to go through Excel. So we can actually keep things up to date. We can actually connect directly to that TXT file, which is really cool. So if you think about it, so now I have that .txt file sitting there. I have my model here. Once I link it to Power BI, if I make model changes, all I have to do is export to that TXT and press refresh in Power BI. And I'm updating that. If you wanted to, you can definitely create some sort of a system where that automatically happens on its own. To me, it doesn't make a huge difference. Okay, so now I'm going to create a new Power BI desktop. And so, for those of you not sure or familiar at all with Power BI, it's a Microsoft project or Microsoft software. I believe it stands for Business Intelligence, Power BI. And I believe for most people, if you already have Microsoft, it's definitely free, but I'm pretty sure it's free for most people in general. There's a premium version for different things, but I'm pretty sure you can use it for most of the features for free. But definitely check it out. Most of you probably have a license to Office, and I think you can get it through there. Super valuable tool, and I don't think you need to pay for the premium for most of what you'd be doing with it. And so this is what it looks like. And so when I was first learning Power BI, basically the way people would explain it is it's like a pivot table in Excel. Okay. I don't know about you, but I'm not an Excel wizard at all. I can get around it, sure, but I honestly cannot create a pivot table. I've tried it, and I've done it maybe once or twice that it's been successful, but I didn't really understand what the heck was going on. And so, yeah, I don't like explaining it that way. To me, it's more of a really, really easy way to make bar graphs and pie charts that you would normally make in Word or Excel. So, because as a typical Microsoft Office user, that to me is way more easier to comprehend. Is you remember like whenever you created a line graph in biology class or something like that, there would be a grid, a table, and you would have an X and Y, and that's how it filled in, right? And to me, that is a little easier to start the concept to understand. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be bringing in data, and really it's just columns and rows. Columns are going to be essentially your parameters, and the rows are going to be your values. Basically what it comes down to, okay? The nice thing about it is it can line it all up, and then because its job is to visualize that data, you can start slicing and dicing and filtering that data to get what you need out of it. So with all that being said, we're going to bring in our data right now. This is a brand new Power BI desktop sheet. You can see in the middle is sort of your workboard. On the right hand side you have fields, your visualization. So that would be where your line graphs, bar charts, tables, whatever. That's kind of where you would start and filter them. And then they added recently they added a page level filters here, which is really cool, and I'll show you how to use that. So before we even get into each one of those, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to link our data. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to say get data. Okay, and so right away there's a whole bunch of file types that you could use. Okay, and so you could see it has a whole bunch of file types. And a lot of these are actually, you can see Azure SQL, PDF, they're MailChimp. I mean, there's a lot of connections that can be made. And the really cool thing about these connections with applications is that usually they're dynamic connections. So for example, QuickBooks Online or MailChimp, those type of programs, those aren't, exporting data and refreshing. Those are literally, when you press refresh on here, it's refreshing data from the cloud immediately. So you do have a truly dynamic and up-to-date dashboard, which is pretty sweet. All right, so let's do text.csv and click connect. And then room schedule 2 is the one I'm going to use. So these are my txt files. And I'm going to click open. Now you notice right away, look at this. It already looks like how I want it to be. And even because I got rid of that blank row and the header, Power BI is already recognizing the first row as our column headers. And that's key. Because if you didn't have column headers for that, then the parameter name, so to speak, for these would be column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, and you'd have to make Power BI recognize that. And then it's also recognizing parameter and area. So I'm going to say load. And now it's there. Look at, oh, what happened? Nothing. What you will notice is all the way on the right-hand side, room schedule 2 is right here, and we have area, level, name, number, parameter. And so I didn't modify the data because I knew it was going to come in the way I want it to. If you need to modify the data, you go up to where it says Edit Queries, and you click Edit Queries. Of course, it opens up on the wrong screen. Sorry about that. And all of your connected data will be here on the left-hand side. These are your data tables. And you'll notice that because of those settings that I told you about in Revit, when exporting, pretty much it's accepting the data the way we want it to. So it's recognizing all of these as column headers, and it's recognizing our our text as text and it's recognizing our numbers as numbers. Okay, so that's a key here too, is if you're using dates, if you're using numbers, if you're using text, you need to make sure that in this environment here, Power BI knows what type of essentially I'm going to use the word parameter because to me, as a Revit user, that makes the most sense, right? I know they call them columns, I think is all they call them, but I like using the word parameter. It makes so much more sense to me. But anyways, we're basically setting the type. So if it's a date, you need to make sure that Power BI knows it's a date. If it's a location, you need to make sure Power BI knows the location. So you have to set those things if it doesn't automatically do it. And honestly, if you have your data going in correctly in the very beginning, it will most likely automatically do it. I can tell you from experience that if you set up and you're trying to use this with a template or a data that needs to be manipulated, when you bring it in every time or new formats of it, it's a pain in the butt. I have a sheet that we use for tracking our resources within the department, and I unfortunately didn't know Power BI when I started the sheet, and so we've got like 47 of these Excel sheets that are for every single project, and it's got to be like 30 minutes of me doing a bunch of column and row and modifications in this piece of it in order to get it to work in Power BI because I didn't know how I should format it to make my life easier. Okay, and it looks like people are confirming that Power BI is free, so yeah, definitely just look into it. I'm almost 100% sure that there's a free version. There may be some premium versions, but look around and I think you'll find it. Okay, so I just clicked apply and close. So now what happens? So if I just wanted to recreate the schedule real quick, I'm going to place a table. So under visualization, I click table, and I can quickly recreate the schedule. So the schedule was level, and what I'm doing is I'm dragging from my data area, which is our fields. That's my data. I'm going to drag level, and I'm going to put it under values. And you'll notice over here, it says basement and first floor. So it's starting to recreate the schedule a little bit. If I wanted to put number next, I'll put number down. Now you'll notice what's happening is it's making it longer, obviously. First floor, there's the room number, and there's the level. First floor, basement, etc., right? So now I can also put in the name, the area, and the perimeter. Actually, I think I did perimeter first in the schedule. Okay, so now notice what it's doing, and this is without any settings. It's totaling those, which is great. So we know the perimeter of all the rooms in the project is 1,300 or 1,032.69 feet. The area is 3,144.92. Okay, pretty cool. And we just created, we created our schedule. So now, obviously, we can do a lot more with this, but I just wanted you to see that connection that was made there. So we basically took this data from Revit, from the schedule, we exported it, and now we're connecting it to Power BI. So now if I was to make a change, and maybe I should, let's put a few more visuals in here, and then we'll make a change so you can see it. So what's something else that we might want to see? Let me put in a donut chart because everyone loves donut charts, even though my buddy Dan, who's actually on here today, would argue that they don't tell you, or they're a little misleading. And I do agree with that. They're actually kind of a little misleading. Okay, so let's just say we want to see now the area per level. So what percentage of the area is on the first floor, what percentage of the area is on the second floor, or basement, whatever it is. So what I'm going to do is, for this guy, I'm going to click it, and my legend, which is going to be sort of the pieces of the pie, is going to be level. So I'm just dragging things into the data fields, and you can see now it's already making a legend, basement and first floor, and my value is going to be area. So I put that under values. And so just like that, I know that based on just the information I have here, or just the information I brought out, I'll make it a little bigger if you guys can't read it. It says here, my first floor is 1,000 or 1.3. I can format that afterwards. So 33% of my area is on the first floor, or the basement, and then 68% of my area is on the first floor, which makes sense. So then I could also let's look at perimeter too to see, just for fun, what the difference is there. So I'm going to throw another donut chart. I'm going to do a level for legend, and then I'm going to do perimeter for my values. Here we go there. So the perimeter, you can see we have 814 feet for the first floor, and 217 feet. So I don't know what you're going to do with this data, but it's there, right? Which is kind of cool. And then what's really neat about Power BI, and this is what I like, for those of you looking at this, you may be like, wow, he just made a graph. It's a graph like any other graph you can make in Excel, right? But the really cool thing about it is filtering and slicing the data is extremely dynamic, and it looks really cool, but it's easy to do. So like if I only want to see first floor now, in any of these graphs, I can click those values, and you notice every visual on this page is being filtered by what I'm clicking. You can also put in what are called filters. So, oops. So over here on the visuals, there's something called the slicer. So I'm going to place a slicer, and if I want to slice it by level, you notice I can put in a slicer here, and I can say I only want to see all the rooms on first floor. No, I want to see all the rooms on basement. Right? So now you can quickly analyze and start filtering and slicing and dicing your values, which is super, or your visuals, which is super powerful, right? Last but not least, let's throw in a bar chart, because what's a graph without a bar chart? And let's say maybe for this one we'll do room name, room name by area or something like that. So now we can start looking at this and seeing what rooms are taking up the most area. Okay, notice the existing basement is taking up the most area. So, and this is where the slicing comes into play. So if for some reason you wanted to see how room areas are comparing to each other, you may want to take out the basement real quick to look at that visual and how it changes. So I can just click first floor, and now you'll notice now we get a better sense of the existing bedroom versus living versus master versus blah blah blah. You can start looking at it this way. If we want to look at it by number, by room number, for example, that may be even more valuable. So let me go back in here and let's do room number instead of area. I mean instead of name. Oh yeah, I just did the wrong thing there. It's area. I'm gonna do room number as my axis. There we go. So now you can start looking at it and saying, okay, room 103 is 253 square feet, blah, 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 and you start comparing the room sizes. You want to know what they are, you can click them, or you can even add the data to the tool hub. So right away you could see, and again, I'm just giving you examples of how it could be used. I have no idea how you may find it valuable. Everyone has different uses for this stuff, but the reality is once you have the power to do it is when it starts taking off. As you saw, I just showed you 4 dashboards. I've got dozens more from all kinds of different things, from resource management to I have all of my financial stuff through QuickBooks and Mint coming into Power BI. It's just such an easier way to visualize your data. Okay, so quickly let's make a change and show you how that process looks. So let me go back into Revit here. Let me go to my first floor, and then I know that I saved as with this file, but man, when you take a final construction document like this and you move it, you never know what's going to happen. But really, I'm just going to move, there we go, elements will be deleted. That's what's going to happen. I had disjoint on, let me try that again. So I'm just going to select this wall, I'm going to move it. I'm not going to have disjoint on. I'm going to move it 3.5 feet over there, whatever. So I just pulled the wall this way. Now, obviously, the room's changed. So what I'm going to do, and based on the process that I've set up right now, is I go over to my schedule, I go to File. Wait a second, because the File button in Revit is annoying. Go to Export, go down to here, and then we go to Reports, Schedule, because there's 17 clicks to get to it. And then you just overwrite Room Schedule 2. But you have to realize that Revit doesn't save your settings in the CSV export. So notice export titles is still checked. So you got to make sure that you uncheck that, or else you're going to have all kinds of issues. Okay, so now I'm going to uncheck that, click OK, jump back into Power BI, and all I have to do in Power BI is click refresh. Refresh? Maybe not. Oh, I guess it did change. I didn't see it change. No. Maybe I just didn't see it change. Let me try again. Export, report, schedule, room schedule 2, save, yes, uncheck. Oh, you know what? The rooms might not have actually changed size, so that won't be good. So export column headers, click OK. All right, I gotta go back to Revit. Anyways, you get the idea of the process itself. See, I was messing around with some floors and stuff here, so as you can see, the rooms actually didn't change size. So let's do, instead of dealing with that, let me be nice if the actual data changed, right? Let me take this wall too and stretch it and see if the rooms change size there. That one should work. Ignore some warnings. Yep. ignore warnings everywhere. Okay, so now these rooms should have got a little bit bigger. I got something funky going on in this model when I was messing around with it before, so you guys should see how many warnings I'm ignoring right now. You guys would be driving yourself nuts. Okay, so now the room levels, the room areas changed. So now if I jump back into my schedule over here, and I go File, wait 30 seconds, export, reports, schedule, room schedule 2, save, overwrite, uncheck export title, click OK, and now we go back into Power BI and refresh it. There we go. It was quick, but it changed. Okay, so that right there, the file menu is so painful. Yes, I know. My God, the file menu is so painful. I'm even on the VPN because I was afraid of that, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so notice that process now. So it makes it really, really easy. So whatever you want to do with your data, if you have an existing schedule or you have this schedule set up, you're freaking good to go. This is fantastic. Okay. So that's how you connect them. That's as easy as it is. You set up a schedule, you can export it, and then you can connect it. So now I want to talk about a little bit of a different process that I think some of you may find valuable because it overcomes a limitation of Revit when it comes to schedules. And so if there's not any questions, I think I saw a couple, just reading on here. Neil said replication of schedule at the start. Yes, Neil, definitely replicate the schedule. I think I mentioned that before. If you're going to do this process and you want to use a schedule on your documents, but you also want a schedule to pump out to here, you may want to create schedules that are for export, just like you would do like a Navis view or something like that, or a Lumion view. Make dedicated schedules for that. Okay, the data will always be updated, right? Okay, so now let me jump over to this guy, which is one of my newest and latest creations. Okay, so right now, take the my head is kind of in the way there, huh, guys? Move my head over a little bit. There's really no place to put my head that's not in the way here. That's kind of okay. So Juan just asked, what about a key combination for export the schedule? I think you're asking, is there a key? Can you do a keyboard shortcut for schedule exports? I actually don't think so. I'll check right now. So for those of you that don't know, if you go under View and over to User Interface, you can check out all of your keyboard shortcuts. And let's see. I want to say there aren't any ways to do that, but we'll see. Oh, right here. Let's see. Schedule. Application menu reports. Let's give it a try. So it looks like we may actually be able to do it. So I don't know if let's do. Schedule export. SX? I don't think SX is anything, right? Oh, it is. Oh, it's the points. Okay, so let's do SCX. Okay, SCX. So now if I type SCX, or I overwrite a level there, or you got to use Shift. You have to use Shift or something. But yeah, I guess you could assign a keyboard shortcut. Great point there. Okay, so now let me jump into this guy. So, story about this one. So, as I mentioned last week, I'm in the process of designing an addition for my personal house, and we're really early on. Part of it is obviously figuring out what the budget even needs to be and exploring costs and stuff like that. And so, what I did here, and take the numbers for what they are. I'm in Connecticut, but I'm also using RS Means for now. I haven't verified any of this information, but what I wanted to play around with was the idea of building unit pricing into the model. And how we can utilize that moving forward. So, as I mentioned before, at Turner Construction, where we do cost estimates all the time, we are using Assemble as our tool. Assemble is phenomenal for it. What's great about it, one of the biggest advantages of using Assemble is that it's not like Revit where it has restrictions when it comes to scheduling. So, Assemble has an inventory that's basically a schedule, but you can have every single category that exists in your model in that inventory. So it makes it really easy to see everything. If you guys haven't tried connecting or creating a schedule for like something like this with cost estimating, one thing that you'll realize immediately is that a multi-category schedule cannot put system families in it. So what does that mean? That means that a multi-category schedule, which should be the kind of like end-all be-all of schedules for Revit, it's multi-category, you can't have walls, doors, or sorry, doors you can't have, walls, floors, roofs, whatever's a system family, not a loadable family. Which means if you want to do a full cost estimate within the Revit environment, you need to have schedules for every single one of those things. So if I jump over to the split level redux, this is the addition. You guys probably saw it last week. It might have changed a little bit. We're sort of, again, really early on messing with designs. But if you go down here, you'll notice that I have floor quantities, roof quantities, wall quantities, door quantities, and then up here I have, somewhere in here I have a multi-category construction estimate. So this was the multi-category one, okay? So if you've ever tried this before, you may think, yes, I found a multi-category schedule. I can put my walls, doors, windows, I can make it do calculate totals, I can build in unit pricing, and I have a takeoff, boom, right there. No. There is no way in Revit, as far as I know, and if you guys know of a way, let me know, to create a schedule that has every single category in a model in a schedule. Okay? That's kind of cool. All right. So I sort of farted around with how to do this. Like, how can I play with this idea? So the first thing I did, just so you know, is trying to simplify things. And again, I'm just working through a process here, and this is my own project, so I don't really care. And you know, anyone who's innovated and sort of tried new things, you may know, you know, that you know, the mock-up is rough, right? So if this was ever to move forward, you know, I do different ideas of how to approach something like this, the parameters, etc. Neil, I know you said Dynamo. Yes, Dynamo. Yes, I got it. So what I did real quick is I made a project parameter that's an instance parameter, and it's called unit price and takeoff unit. And the reason I did that is the takeoff unit is going to be valuable on the Power BI side for me to tell Power BI, you know, what I'm multiplying my unit price by. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to pump out the information, and I'm going to pump out whatever exists. So for every element that I'm exporting and using in Power BI, I'm going to export a perimeter, an area, or sorry, just an area and a length, I believe. So that would be, you know, linear foot and square footage. Right now I'm doing kind of, I know it says unit price, but it's kind of an assembly price. So, you know, I guess that's not the right term, but whatever. And so, and then each, right? So number of doors, number of windows. And so what I did here is, and I wanted to use an instance parameter just because, remember, I'm plugging away and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, so it's just easier to select elements and pump in a parameter. So anyway, so if you look at this, what I'm saying here is this exterior wall construction is $9.89 a square foot. Okay, that's what I'm saying right here. And that, and for anyone who's familiar with pricing, that right now is including the drywall, the studs, it's the whole assembly of the wall. Anyways. Okay, so I added that in, and as I was building this, or after the fact, I went around and I selected items. Like, for example, if I'm going to do my deck as a square foot estimate, you know, I click the deck because I know that has the square footage that I want to use, and I typed in the information, $40 a square foot, takeoff unit square footage. Same thing with windows, same thing with doors, etc. Right? So I plugged in that information as I was building and after the fact, right? So then, yeah, in reality, I could jump in and I could say, okay, I've got my floors here. I have an area, a perimeter, and a unit price. I could do a conditional or a calculated column within Revit, and I get my total for floors, right? And then I could do a calculated column in my roofs, and I could do a total cost for roofs. And yes, I know I could do that. But I want to see it all in the same damn place, right? And so the only way to do that is to get outside of Revit, unfortunately. So a couple things I could do. I could go through and do file export, and I guess now I could do a keyboard shortcut, like Control-Shift-E or something like that. I don't know. And I could export 17 schedules and then try to combine them in Power BI. And I could tell you from experience, it works, but it is very difficult to. I mean, it's not very difficult. It's just it's a different concept to bridge data together from different sources. One of the great things about Power BI is that you can pull in data from different sources. So we have dashboards that are pulling from Assemble, pulling from Excel, and pulling from like Procore, all in the same place, which is super cool. But I didn't want to get into that. I want to say, how can I get all this data, and as I'm modeling and as I'm designing this, I can just pump out a new version of this, refresh my dashboard in Power BI, and get the new updated cost. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. Carlos just mentioned PyRevit has a one-click button to export Excel. Yes. So I know that, but again, this is sort of a learning process and hopefully showing you guys and understanding. So what I did is I used Dynamo. Because whenever I get stuck on anything in Revit, I immediately say, let me go to Dynamo to see if I can overcome it. So all I did in Dynamo is I created, using a very simple export to Excel type of script, I combined essentially all of the system families and categories that I wanted, and I pumped out to an Excel file. And I formatted it using Dynamo so that I don't have to touch the Excel file. I'm just exporting it and then bringing it into Power BI. So let me show you what that looks like. So I have it here. It's called, oh, now my head's in the way, right? It's called Export to Excel Multi-Category. Now let me go to a view. So what I did, I know there's 1,000 ways you can there's always 1,000 ways that you can do things in Dynamo. What I decided to do was just use a node that allows you to export everything that's visible in your active view. So I just made a view that showed only new, and it's only showing what I want to show. So it's actually kind of funny. This right here, you can see this floor and this roof. Planning on refinishing the roof and planning on refinishing the floor. So I gave them their own elements and put them on new, and so everything's in new construction. But anyways, let me jump into Dynamo now. And this isn't a Dynamo class. I can do plenty of sessions on Dynamo, and I have lots of information on Dynamo. But I do want to sort of walk through what's happening here, because I think it's just one of those things that can show you the value and power of all this, and then also how it all comes together in the Power BI side. Super cool. So what I did here is this node here is just gathering all of the elements in the active view. So whatever you see in that view that's not hidden is here. Okay. Then I'm just getting parameter values. So all of the elements now, I want to pull off the parameters. I'm pulling off area, length, unit price, and takeoff unit. That's it. Okay. Then I need to, because remember, I'm also I need to pull the name of the element, so the element type, and then I need to pull the category out of there, right? Because if I want to recreate this and I really want value to it, I want to be able to see floors, walls, windows, the categories, and then I also want to be able to see the family type. So what's the family called, etc. And those you can't just say get parameter value by. You need to use nodes. So these two nodes are getting the categories of all those elements, and then these are getting the family types of all those elements. Then all this crap right here is just combining those lists and formatting them into one succinct thing that looks good in Revit. I want to thank John Pearson. I don't know if he's here tonight, but maybe he'll look at this in the future. I was struggling hard on this last piece, which was getting the headers. So out of all this, remember I said you want to format your data as best possible outside of Power BI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new Excel file because I don't want to overwrite the other one. And for those of you who have ever done an export to Excel, usually when you're using the default nodes, you have to have an Excel file to pump into. So I'm just making a blank Excel file that I'm going to call live cost estimate. Okay. So remember how we exported the rooms? We wanted headers and then values and nothing else. So if I didn't create the headers, I would have had to put those in an Excel or put them in Power BI. It would have been extremely, extremely annoying. So all of this right here, notice how I'm taking all these list.create, list.flat, and blah, blah. I'm just making a list. But the one thing that John Pearson 60 seconds reference, if you guys don't know, I added this dumb code block here. And so this is, for those of you that aren't comfortable with Dynamo and aren't familiar with it, I'm just going to go geek out for a second now. I'll come back. So just by putting this code block in between and making this list, actually, I should run it so you guys can see all this crap that comes out of it. Because I do know we got some Dynamo geeks out there, so let's do it. So I just ran it really quickly, and you'll notice, so this list here are basically my headers. So I combined my parameter names, and then I just manually typed in category and family type. So now these are my headers. So I want these to be the first piece of the pie at the top of this list. Okay. And so notice how these are all here, right? So the first list is actually category, family type, area, length. And so that's going to be a row in Excel. So my first, I could do here, this is going to be category, and it's going to go from left to right. So that was important. I needed that to happen. Well, if I didn't put this dumb code block in here, look what happens. Let me unconnect this. If I just connected directly to list.addItem to front and I click run, of course now it does it. I should probably refresh. But either way, what it was doing is it wasn't allowing the data, or it was placing the category as the first in every single list. For some reason, just by putting a code block in there, calling it an X and passing it through, it groups that together and it makes Dynamo put them in front. Freaking awesome. Anyway, so thank you, John. Appreciate it. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to browse. I'm just going to hit the, where's that one? Live cost estimate. So remember what this is doing. It's taking all the elements in my active view. It's grabbing their parameters, their family types, their family categories, and it's putting them in Excel. So if I click run, it's going to yell at me. Am I in the file? I probably edited the file. Try that again. All right, now it's not working. And I don't know why that X thing works. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. I don't know why. Oh, is there no sheet 1 in this one? Oh, stupid thing. Yeah, sheet. Oh, one of those things. So, sorry. So if you guys are ever trying to use Excel with Dynamo, or if you use Excel in general, they decided to go, but depending on what version of Excel you use, there's a space between sheet 1 or not. Those things. So now, as you can see, this is what was pumped out. So I'll zoom in so you guys can see it. Notice the very top, category, family type, area, blah, 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 blah. Okay, length, unit price, everything we possibly need. But what you'll also notice is, check this out. There's walls, there's curtain panels, there's floors, there's columns. Oh, guess what? There's furniture, there's doors, there's windows. This is a truly multi-category schedule. Freaking A, man. All right, so that's it. So now I pumped it out. Now this is basically your CSV export, like you would have used in the beginning. So now I can go into Power BI, and I can load it in, and you see what you have here. So now the key thing here, what's really cool about this, is because I brought in categories and family types, etc. I can filter by that. So if I want to see how much just the windows are, the percentage of cost, etc. But remember how I said, creating the unit price, I would have had to do it in every single schedule. Well, in Power BI, you can create measures just like you could in Excel. It's using DAX format. And so I got to pull open all this stuff now. Pull this down here. And so if I go over to hard costs, notice there's this column here called total cost. I don't know if I can scroll into this. Oh, I can. Whoa, look at that. So the cool thing, and I don't want to say the cool thing because anyone who's dealt with DAX in this format knows that it can be extremely frustrating. But if anyone out there has made a formula in Revit, this is not all that different, okay? And so what you'll see here is I'm using those units, those takeoff units that I plugged in there, and I'm saying if the takeoff unit says SF, I want you to multiply the unit price by the area. If the takeoff unit says LF, I want you to multiply the unit price by the length. If the takeoff unit says each EA, I want you to multiply the unit price, or just use the unit price, okay? And then everything else, 0. Because if I didn't plug in a unit price, I don't want it to calculate right now, okay? So check that out. So right there, instead of doing it in 17 schedules and figuring it all out, now in this one dashboard, I've got my total cost, and it's multi-category. So if I go back over here, you'll notice I have walls, doors, windows, everything in the exact same piece. And the other side of it, which is pretty neat, notice on the right-hand side I have total soft cost. Remember I said you could add multiple pieces of data? So I'm bringing in an Excel sheet that comes from Revit. So let's just say we are using DB Link or something else like that. Either way, it's coming from Revit. Well, guess what? If I go into queries, I also have an Excel sheet here called soft costs, and that's just a blank Excel sheet that I created. So that one there, if I open it up, this is just a piece of text. I typed in all the soft costs I can think of. I typed in some values. But now I can actually combine and add and multiply and utilize these two pieces of data together, which is super, super powerful. All right. Whew. So, all that being said, yeah, I was sorry. I was reading a couple comments there. You sorry. Looks like we got some DAX lovers out there, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, just some examples of how you can utilize it. So I'm right there. You know, the first piece of it is exporting a schedule to a CSV and then using that directly in Power BI. The other piece of it is using like Dynamo to pump it into Excel directly. I think you can actually export to a specific file format too from Dynamo, and then combining it all together here. And so, you know, again, these are super cool. You know, you can filter through them. They're really dynamic. And the other part of it too is if I modify something, all I have to do is run that Dynamo script and press refresh, and I'm good to go. That's it. So all that's to say, you know, this isn't necessarily the best solution for an efficient cost estimating tool. I can tell you that for a fact. But it's a really cool. It's a simple technique to set up. It doesn't take any extra software, and it can be extremely valuable. Like I said, if I was to do this using Assemble, it would be done in 5 seconds. But all right, Neil said, "Can you trust the direct quantities purposes?" Yes, of course you can trust the direct quantity purposes. I built the model, bro. Yeah, of course. I mean, anyone who has seen any of my talks about model-based takeoff, and again, I don't want to go on a rant. I feel like I've been on a lot of rants today, but anyone who's seen any of my talks about model-based takeoff, if you see the non-model-based takeoff happen, which I've seen many times, I would personally much rather trust the model. So, I mean, the typical program, whether it's a Bluebeam PDF or like an on-screen takeoff or something like that, you're scaling 2D drawings, and then you're having a human being click and count lights or draw polygons that make rooms, right, and go through the list. And that's how it's happening, right? If I was to ask anyone out there who's a Revit user right now, which I'm assuming a lot of you are, if I said, hey, how many toilets are in the project you're working on right now, what are you going to do? You're going to do two things. You're either going to right-click the toilet and say select all in project, or you're going to create a schedule and you're going to count them. You are not going to go through and count every toilet manually, are you? No. So why on earth would you want an estimator to do that, right? You're introducing human error into a process that doesn't need to be human error. The big difference, so the thing that you'll see here, which to me the value of something like an Assemble or a CostX or one of those programs, is that those keep a connection to the model. So here I'm detaching it a little bit, right? In the better 3D model takeoff programs, you can look at that data and say, well, these doors don't sound right. The cost doesn't sound right. You can click them and it highlights them in the model, and you can verify, oh, I'm missing some doors or the parameters are wrong. So that, to me, you can't do model-based takeoff without the connection to the model, personally. All right, I saw a bunch of chats come in. I knew I was going to. How did you get the visual to interact over the images? Oh, great question. I was hoping someone would ask that. Hoping, but maybe not hoping. All right, so let me jump over and share my screen. So anyone who's interested in that, it's unfortunately there's not an easy way to do it. And I brought up in the very beginning, Nathan Miller's got a thing called Tracer, which is I don't know a lot about it yet. It's pretty new, but it looks like he's taking the database information and sort of redrawing some floor plans using that information, and then having the interaction. But what we do is a little more work in the front end, but it works perfectly fine. So what you're seeing here, this is actually a visual that is, let me pull it up. It's a custom visual, and it's called Synoptic Panel. So Synoptic Panel. And so Synoptic Panel, the way it works is it just brings in images. So these are images, but they're SVG images. And so what we've done is in Illustrator, we actually have to manually draw what you're seeing here, the shapes, and then you give them a property that you can connect. And so the process of it is really just creating the shapes you're seeing here. Even when I go to this one. So each one of these is a shape that has information, whether it's a level name, a room number, whatever it is. But what's really cool about it is these are just images that you can zoom in and out of, right? Which is kind of cool. But they're layered images that have data. So like the polygon has level L09 on it, or room 106. what's super cool about it is as long as that room name, number, or piece of data is identical to the one in Revit, so you could use, usually we're using something, usually we're using a custom parameter to do it if we need to, but we've done it with rooms before. So if your room number is X100 and you name that colored box in your Illustrator file as the layer as X100, in Power BI, that's how it's connecting. It's looking for that piece of data, and you're saying this equals that, which is freaking cool. I don't have the example here, but we did a renovation that we're working on, and we basically have Power BI talking with Revit, Assemble, and Procore for the whole process of punch list and walkthroughs and stuff. And the visual is exactly what you heard me say. Is it's all the room numbers, and then it's connecting to the Revit room numbers, and then Procore has the same room numbers for their locations. And so we've got a fully dynamic connection between all these pieces. Scoured, yeah, I believe you can do this using any vector program that you can name a layer. I think we tried in Bluebeam and we weren't having success. I believe the easiest program for us to do it in was Illustrator, but I think anything that can make an SVG that has layered, named layers should work, because that's really all they need. They don't need, they don't need a Illustrator file. They just need the SVG. What do we got here? A lot of chat. Sweet, guys. Awesome. For the most part, quantity reports in Revit are trustable. So, yeah, Mario just mentioned, quantity takeoff with Revit and overlaps. I mean, it's all about, obviously you have to, the garbage in, garbage out with anything, right? And so, to me, like I said before, the biggest key to that is being able to connect your quantities to the model. So if you're getting an exterior wall ratio that seems wonky, right? I mean, it's real easy to just measure the perimeter of the building and the height and know that the area should be 700 square feet or 700,000 square feet, but then your takeoff is showing 500,000. That's when you look at it and you say, oh, it's actually not pulling the curtain walls correctly, right? So you can't just blindly export data and take it for quantities. That's just wrong. Which I'm kind of doing here, but of course I'm the only one working on it. And personally, I'm making the model. I have that connection back and forth. The other thing I guess you could do too is you could also bring out the GUIDs into Assemble and then just use that to select elements in there, but whatever. There's a website that can convert DWG to SVG. Yeah, I think there's multiple ways to do that with DWGs. I think as long as the layers stay the same, you're good. As long as the layer naming. Awesome. Well, whew. You guys, thanks for hanging out. I know it's 8:38. I actually thought I was going to get through even more than this, so maybe I'll do another one in the future. I hope this at least gives you an introduction to it. Again, if you like this channel, if you like this show, if you like what I'm doing here, make sure you subscribe. Subscribe to me. Check out therevitkid.com or BIM After Dark. I do have a private online community called BIM After Dark. So if you go over to community.bimafterdark.com, I'm there with 100 other people right now, which is freaking awesome. We have 100 members. Isn't that crazy? Or just under 100. I'm going to celebrate when we hit 100. And I also have 4 full-length courses within that community, so check that out too. Let's see. Anything else? Any other questions before I head out? I know there was a lot of questions, which is pretty awesome. No? Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I hope this is a good introduction for those of you who maybe don't know what Power BI is, don't understand that connection, or now at least you understand sort of what Power BI is, how you can quickly connect to it. And I urge you to try it out, start messing around with it, and I think you're going to find the value in being able to pull your data out of your projects and visualize it. I'm sure everyone has a different way that they can use it. Mine are just some of the ones I'm demonstrating here, but I hope that's what you take away with today. So the replay for this will be live right on the channel, and it'll also be live at the Revit Kid, so just go to live.bimafterdark.com. And with that, I want to bid you all adieu. I'm supposed to have a guest next week. I'm just confirming with him. It's going to be an exciting one, so make sure you check that out. And I think it's actually going to be at a different time, so pay attention to the channel as well as the website to make sure. So with all that being said, I want to bid you all adieu. Thank you so much. Feel free to reach out to me at the Revit Kid on Twitter. Just go to therevitkid.com. You can find my email and contact there. And yeah, everyone stay safe and enjoy yourselves. And go have some fun with data. Have a good night.